This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner. Here today, Andrea Tantaros from our sister network, Fox Business, Elizabeth McDonald, EMAC. She covers the Supreme Court for us and anchors America's News headquarters, Shannon Bream. And today's hashtag...
How much I love you. I left 75-degree Miami for 9-degree New York.
That's love.
Forget
it's
flowers and candy. That's true love.
It's 9. You brought the heat because it was 0 this morning.
Right, exactly.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
Good to have you. Have a big news day.
Mittens and hot cocoa, and we'll warm you up, Judge.
Yeah.
All right.
You better start burning the furniture. That's not going to do it.
Let's get to it. In France and across Europe, security being ramped up now as that intense manhunt.
So are we treating the war on terror more like a law enforcement issue when we should be treating it differently? Judge Alex, I want to go to you first on this because as much as I believe we should keep Gitmo open, we have had success in federal court.
To the Middle East with the Pentagon in 2006, and back then in briefings that we had with generals, they like World War II, where you carpet bomb a country. This is our new position about where the next attack is coming from. You don't Miranda.
Enhanced interrogation, releasing prisoners is the opposite of what we should be doing.
Well, I still am on the fence about whether or not I believe that us talking about the enhanced interrogation, because when the time calls for it, we will do what we need to do. We can navel gaze all we want. But I happen to think that we'll go back to those practices.
Attack. Obama's NSA needs a bit more power. We should amp up our spying. Do you agree with that? I mean, it seems to me that Obama's NSA has a lot of spying power already.
Well, and this is from the three who heard it, saying, you're telling us the government needs all of these
terror suspects to cities like downtown Manhattan. But if these terror suspects from Gitmo, which Obama says he's going to close Gitmo, he doesn't seem to care what happens, how many people are killed in Paris or Fort Hood or Oklahoma City, who's beheaded. He's going to close down Gitmo. Are the courts the best chance that we have?
For some of the cases,
But don't you think that's why the president keeps saying we're not at war, there is no war on terror, we're not at war with Islam? This way he can argue, well, there's no war, so I can close Gitmo.
I think there's a lot of reasons why he says we're not at war.
How do we treat these people when we bring them here? Because the scenario that I had laid out previously is if there's something imminent that we know.
Every other defendant, they're going to be Mirandized.
Some of the people objecting to the interrogation procedures now, these are people on the Hill on both sides of the aisle who were repeatedly, dozens of times, given
Right. Everything we should be doing, interrogating, trying them at Gitmo, we're not doing.
Yeah.
It's disappointing. Well, and a live look at Paris and the ongoing it's a very scary thought. Harris, you've been following this story here. I mean, how do we now prevent something like this here at home? I mean, at a time when you see such harsh treatment of our police, I mean, it's not the best time now to have these problems here at home.
You know what's interesting here in New York City, and this is off topic a bit, but it somewhat answers your question.
A couple things popped into my head when I think about what we should be doing, closing down the border, making sure that terrorist names are entered with the correct spelling instead of the Tsarnaev brothers, who, because of a spelling. Warning signs right out there on social media. How do we monitor that better?
You know, in order to be safe, and those...
As a former attorney, and you worked in the field of sexual harassment.
And I think that temptations is gone. And people say, why didn't these women come forward before? At the height of his popularity, we all know in the 80s,
ignored.
Right, or they were told, you're never going to win this case, go away. They were
6 different states. 4 of the women alleged the sexual abuse took place when they were underage.
Wow.
Or a minor back then, Judge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there should have been.
Underage, it doesn't change that.
Oh, you're saying now?
Yeah, nothing to do with that. So Felicia Rashad, the words that ring in my head are, quote, he's an intellectual.
It should not be tantamount to a conviction.
Absolutely.
But when you, which she starred on, and you know what, by the way, you have the case and you come out making statements like that. I find it really disturbing.
We talked about the presumption of innocence when I was here, I think, the first time, where I'm entitled to have our own opinion.
Do you think she has a point?
No, I don't. First, let me just say, I've hosted a show with Felicia, is somewhat blinded by her affection for Bill Cosby, because everybody can form opinion.
She was in her comments.
Well, she says she was misquoted, and she said he's an intellectual. She said he's generous. You know what? Those things aren't mutually exclusive. You could be generous and still be a rapist. I guess she's trying to defend her friend. But if I were her, I would just keep my mouth shut.
Well, there you go. And now I'm going to open my mouth and say this. Does a state have the right to...
Well, a stunning claim from legendary Red Sox pitcher Curt Schilling. The 3-time World Series champ says he was kept out of the Baseball Hall of Fame this year for the 3rd year in a row because of his politics. In a radio interview, Schilling says pitcher John Smoltz may have earned a place over him because, quote, he's a Democrat. And so I know that as a Republican, there's some people that really don't like that. However, there's some questions about Smoltz's political leanings. All right, you're nodding your head here, Shannon. This is not my area of expertise.
Well, I'm just going to say, Smoltz is a world-class pitcher. I don't think that we could have a big argument that he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame if you know baseball at all. I mean, he's an amazing guy. But we see this everywhere. We see people in Hollywood who say they don't get jobs. They have to hide their political leanings. And, you know, so whether there's anything to it, whether he was joking and just, I don't know.
Doesn't Smoltz say he's a Republican?
That's always been my impression, that he leans a little bit more conservative, but the stats don't lie. If you're just looking at the numbers, I say Schmaltz in.
I just find it hard to believe now.
It's a good conversation among friends that's interrupted by a hit occasion.
Particularly college
Except
ball.
for the playoffs. I'll watch it.
Don't you like being able to drink in the daytime without judgment?
You don't need
I can do that.
baseball
I can
for
do that
that.
on the bench.
He doesn't know.
Why do you need baseball for that?
Oh, and for the hot dogs.
By the way,
And the beer.
And
I think it was the Standard
beer,
Weekly who reported that Smoltz had given to Mitt Romney's campaign in 2000. Yeah,
I'm not sure. Yeah, I wouldn't portray him as a guy who leans left.
I don't know how much it
cares,
matters
really?
when they're on the mound.
He knows how to strike people out.
And
That's what I'm talking
right.
about.
All right, thank you so much, Judge Alex. We're going to head to
great to have
Outnumbered
you.
Overtime. By the way, one of our hosts on this couch, here's a quiz for you, was in a Janet Jackson video in a cage called Black Hat. Remember that song?
All right, it was me.
It was the
You know what, Andrea, I can't tell you anything, girl.
I didn't say it was you.
Yeah, but the camera's
I
on
will
me.
reveal the identity coming up on Outnumbered Overtime, which starts now. Happening now. Starts now.